Hey, Hawkeye fans, Chad Leistikow of the Des Moines Register. Happy Tuesday to you. Tyler Tachman of the Register joining us. How you feeling, Tyler? I know under the weather a little bit today. Thanks for gutting it out, just like the Hawkeye 69,250 Hawkeye fans did on Saturday. You're gutting it out. You're fighting through for us.
Yeah, I can't lie. I think being on the field before the game when it was like 40s and rainy probably didn't didn't help my case much, but I'm doing better.
By the way, just once again, just want to applaud all the Iowa fans out there that went to the game, stuck it out. I mean, that stadium was loud. It was full at the end. We get to write about the Hawkeyes and talk about the Hawkeyes for a living, which is a huge blessing. But we would not be able to do this without all of you guys and all the passion that you guys have out there. So thank you so much for just being so awesome. And the stadium was lit. You deserved the win out there for sticking it out. But of course, the Hawkeyes fall 18-16. Hopefully, you caught our post game podcast. Tyler and I are going to kind of look ahead now to USC. And one thing we're going to talk about as we move forward is the final 2 point margin, because 2 point conversions. Did some more digging after our podcast. It was a heated topic that night. Didn't have all the data. Did some digging. Iowa has now missed 7 in a row. Now 0 for 6 on twos in the Tim Lester era, and now 4 for its last 21 as a program dating back to the middle of 2016. So it is an issue. It's something I wrote about quite a bit today, and it's starting to actually bother me more and more, that learning that they don't actually practice it, Tyler.
Well, and what Kirk Ferentz said about that was that basically their best 2-point conversion was what Mark Gronowski scored on fourth down, which I guess that kind of makes sense because that was the game right there. If Iowa doesn't score there, then you don't even get to the opportunity of the 2-point conversion. But what I see when you look at it from a bigger picture of why Iowa struggled so much in 2-point conversions with Tim Lester is because the passing game has struggled so much that your go-to plays are basically running the ball. And when you think about what types of plays are good in that 2-point conversion territory, it's running the ball is a risk because if it's stopped, it's stopped. There's no kind of backup plan to that. So that's why you see, quarterback rollouts and passing and things of that nature, because you're able to extend the play a little bit and have multiple options. But because Iowa has been so bad at passing, those types of 2-point scenarios where, you might be able to make a short pass, Iowa just hasn't been good passing the ball. So much of the offense has been relying on the run. And then you get in that kind of 2-point scenario, and it's like, I'm not sure you really want to run the ball, although that might be Iowa's best option. But it's just like, Iowa's been so good running the ball that in that scenario, is that what you would want to rely on in a 2-point conversion? Maybe if you get two chances at it, like then you can run the ball twice. But I don't know. I think it's fit Iowa the way Iowa's offense has been built and its strengths really poorly.
You stopped abruptly. I wasn't ready for you to stop. So
Oh,
I actually went back and watched all 6 2 point conversion attempts in the Tim Lester era. All 6 have been shotgun formation. All 6 have been pass calls. None of the 6 have been close to converting. You think about the second one against Penn State a couple weeks ago, was like basically thrown into the stands with KJ Parker running a pseudo fade route, I guess. I mean, that didn't even give him a chance. In that case, you'd want to at least give the receiver a chance. I mean, you're trying for points here, not just trying to throw it away. There was uh, 2 tries to Luke Lachey last season. 1 try to Zach Ortworth this year. That was on Gronowski's first touch, the first 2 point attempt against Penn State. Iowa was 0 for 2 against Penn State. That almost cost them in the 25-24 loss. Obviously, it directly cost them overtime against Oregon here this past game, and at 100% cost them a win last year against Iowa State in a 20-19 loss. Iowa goes up 19-7, goes for 2. The throw to Lachey had no. I mean, it was just not a good play call, not a good execution. Didn't have a chance. I think the throw went like out of the end zone almost. And they also tried one at Michigan State last year that was kind of off the hands of Lachey. That was about the closest one we saw. Believe there was also a fade pass to Vanderzee. Maybe that was last year. There might have been one more. I might be mixing them up which game was which, but there was also a fade pass to Vanderzee in one of the games last year that was just not even close. So it's been six pass plays, all shotgun, all definite passes. And this Tim Lester has been tremendous. I feel like as Iowa's offensive coordinator, but I feel like, and I've gotten a lot of comments like this too, Tyler, and that's why I'm dwelling on it so much, is like Iowa, and this is kind of borrowing one of the comments I got in my text group. It's like Iowa is so focused on winning in the margins, and they have had this blind spot now for 2-point conversions for largely a decade. They went 10 straight 2-point conversions missing from 16 to 19. And the one you guys probably remember the most was Nate Stanley's quarterback draw. Iowa gets the big, long touchdown pass to Tyrone Tracy at Wisconsin, cuts it to 24-22, Big Ten West on the line. And then Nate Stanley, quarterback draw, stopped short of the goal line. Iowa loses by 2. Again, that call actually wasn't bad, honestly. The ref got in the way a little bit, but nonetheless, they've just been unsuccessful time after time after time. And I feel like it's the type of play where Ferentz and the players are like, well, we basically practice red zone, so it's the same thing. But I totally disagree. It's not the same thing because you're going from the 3-yard line in a very specific condensed formation to the end zone with one shot where the defense is playing with a lot of desperation. And as I wrote in my column, it's not like you're second and goal from the 12, like these, or it's not even like 4th and 3 from the 40. Like it's a very specific situation, and you need to have very unique play calls and specific play calls and go-to play calls for these situations because they're worth 2 points. They're almost as much as a field goal.
Yeah, I mean, and you saying that they've all been passes just kind of reinforces like if it comes down to one play for Iowa, how much confidence do you have that the passing game is going to come through? It just hasn't been good, in the last few seasons. And Tim Lester, we thought maybe that was going to be able to get that moving in the right direction this season, and it's really been Mark Gronowski's legs that have really helped Iowa kind of get this quarterback play pointed in the right direction. But if it comes down to one play for Iowa, I mean, you just feel much more confident about their ability to run it than their ability to pass it. So I don't, maybe that's the type of situation. I think you would need to get Mark Gronowski in like a bootleg type scenario where he can run or can pass or something of that nature. But on top of that, I mean, you look back and this is kind of emblematic of the way that Iowa has lost these really close games is that you don't have to be in that scenario if Caden Weegan doesn't fumble it when I was driving down the field earlier in the second half. Like you can kind of mitigate some errors earlier on to where you don't have to be in that situation. And same thing against you think about the Penn State game with the block field goal at the end of the half, and there's other things. Now that wasn't on Iowa's offense, but there's things that Iowa's offense can do in the 3 games that they lost this season. They got off to pretty slow starts offensively. So I think there's things that the 2-point conversion is an issue, but I think it underlies the fact that I think there's more that Iowa's offense can do earlier in the game to keep themselves out of situations like that.
Um, I would say run the ball, maybe try a running play on a 2-point conversion. And the other thing, like that I pointed out also in my column, so hopefully you guys read it. It's posted. Is that in 2021, college football changed its rules to where in the second overtime you have to go for 2. It used to be the third. And now you guys probably know this if you watched the Penn State Illinois game from a couple of years ago that went 9 overtimes. Now, once you get to the third overtime, it's a 2-point conversion off. I mean, it's just 2-point conversions the rest of the way. Like you have to have like an arsenal of plays for this specific instance. And the national college rate last year was nearly 46% on success. And Iowa's rate over the past 10 years is 19%. And that's with, they did get 4 in a row, believe it or not. 3 of them being in 2020, no attempts in 2021, 2022. The first one in 2023 was good. Cade McNamara to Eric All. Everybody remember that great moment against Western Michigan. But ever since they have not. So, I mean, to me, it's, you see this all the time in the pros, like, teams will run like, little reverses or something, or, like what did they call that one that the Eagles did? God, why can't I think of the name of it now?
Oh, the Philly special?
Yeah, the Phillies, stuff like that, like that's the type of stuff that I feel like those types of plays give you a better chance than just drop back and throw into traffic, which Iowa's been trying to do 6 times in a row. So I just feel like it's a blind spot. I think it needs to be practiced. Obviously, there's one practice day left this week. They're not going to start practicing 2-point conversions based on my line of questioning today. So it's not going to happen. But I mean, if something comes down to a 2-point conversion again and Iowa misses, like I feel like there's, so there needs to be some answers. I just, it's starting to bother me more and more. And I get it. I get the frustration out there because it has cost Iowa games.
And maybe this is a learning experience for Iowa. You hate the fact that like it has to come on this big of a stage in a big of a game in a moment that ends up being costly. But I mean, maybe this is something that Iowa can, maybe institute some change in and put a little bit more emphasis on it. But yeah, and then moving forward, maybe they,
Well, how about just even getting Gronowski with a run pass option? They haven't even
yeah.
done that yet out of the 6, the 3 this year anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree. A bootleg, I think a bootleg or
Yeah.
something like that would be a good because then you give him the ability to run, you get him out of the pocket. But I just don't feel confident if you need one play to like get yardage to pass, like to be
I would
such
just rather
reliant.
run it. I'd just try a run and play,
Yeah, I mean, get behind the offensive line and your strength, but
Right. Anyway. All right, so we got trying to decide what to do for the second question today, and I got a good one from the text group. And I wish I could tell you, I mean, I could give you the phone number. I wish I could tell you the person's name, but I'm not going to give you the phone number. But this person said, would welcome your thoughts on today's pod about how well the team seems locked in now that the college football playoff isn't in contention. I think it's something many of us struggle with as fans, particularly now that bowls means so much less. And so I understand that dynamic out there. That Oregon loss took a lot of wind out of your sails as a fan base. I get that in some ways, in a lot of ways. I mean, people are still recovering from it. I've heard that. I feel that. I understand that. I would say the dynamic from player interviews today was very, very determined. I'm going to be writing about this later in the week, but we can talk about it now, is that they are going at this point, they're shooting to be a 10-win team. And that would be, to me, I think you could put yourself into the conversation with the 2019 Hawkeyes in that sense. I was thinking back to the 2019 season today, and I still contend that was one of the better teams of the Ferentz era. That was Tristan Wirfs and AJ Epinesa, their last years. That was the 49-24 win over USC, of all teams, in the Holiday Bowl. You lost by 7 that year to Michigan. You lost by 5 to Penn State, and you lost by 2 to the Jonathan Taylor-led Wisconsin team. Those are your only 3 losses that year. I feel like this team isn't certainly there yet on this level, but I feel like we still look pretty fondly back on that 10-3 team. That ended up being a top 15 team in the country under Ferentz, and so I think that's probably where I would point folks' motivation, and I would say that the players are actually. Logan Jones said this. He's like, we actually are more. Honestly, we're like more motivated now because we've hung with these teams and we want to finish strong. We want to be. You want to be a 10-win team, and that starts with probably the toughest game left on their schedule, which is Saturday at USC as a 6.5-point underdog.
And Mark Gronowski he said a similar sentiment, saying there's always that what if thought process about different games, but it's something that you can't sulk on. You can't think about it forever. So it was similar words from him, and so the message was right. I'm not going to deny that, but I think to me, actions speak louder than words. And if Iowa is really truly going to bounce back from the Oregon game, it's got to show in how they play on Saturday. Like, I think the messaging was right. Everything that the players were saying was right in terms of not letting the 3 games have just been heartbreaking losses. Iowa's 3 losses have come by a combined 10 points, and a few plays here or there, they could be a 2-1 or no loss team at this point. But I think that the more telling response is going to come on the field, how Iowa plays against USC, because if they come out and USC just steamrolls them, then everything that Iowa said today doesn't really mean a whole lot in
Right.
terms of not letting, because I think there could very easily be a Oregon hangover, and
Mhm.
what the players said on Tuesday does not indicate that. But more realistically, it's going to be the play on Saturday, because this is a USC team that, if you don't come ready to play, like, I mean, they're in the college football playoff contention. They're kind of in the periphery on in the picture. They're playing for a lot. So this is going to be a motivated USC team. And if you don't back up what you said on
Mhm.
Tuesday, it could be an ugly scene out there in Los Angeles.
Yeah, definitely. The direct quote from Logan Jones, I have it up here somewhere. Had it up. He said, honestly, I feel like we're even hungrier just to prove that we can play with anybody. We can win 10 football games, and that's our goal right now. But before we can do that, we've got to win this week. I feel like the guys are just so motivated to get better and continue playing. Um, and one point from Brian in our comments, he said, hey, one of these was close to a conversion. The one against Oregon had to go to replay. That is true, but the ball was like completely tipped into the air and blown up. So great play by Kamari Moulton, but it obviously was not by design that it happened that way. So by fluke, yes. By fluke, yes, it was. Um,
Mark
but
Gronowski called bank.
yeah, but no, in terms of play call and execution, it was not a good play. Not a good play. Um, so the other topic that is akin to this is the West Coast thing, and maybe we'll get into this a little bit more in our show tomorrow, Tyler. But um, a real major theme today was, and it sounds like it has been all off season from Kirk Ferentz, is that when they went to UCLA last year, they were not ready to play. They did not show up ready to play. As Bo Stevens said, they prepared. They knew exactly what they were supposed to do. And then when they got there, they were not ready to play. That has been a common theme this year. And so people have been asking me what to change against about this trip to California. That seems to be the message this year is don't let what happened to happen against UCLA last year happen this year, which was, frankly, quite surprising, I think, to all the coaches, what they saw on the field last year. Because remember that UCLA came in as the worst rushing team in the Big Ten by a mile and pretty much ran all over Iowa's defensive line. So that's at least fresh in their heads. It's been drilled into their heads by Ferentz. And so specifically about this game, that is kind of where things stand.
And this is a much better USC team than it was UCLA team. So it's not going to get any easier from the sense of who's going to be on the opposing sideline. And I just, it's one of those things where there's just another variable thrown into it. Like, you can say the travel isn't going to have an impact on it, but it's just another thing that Iowa has to deal with going over there. I mean, I thought Oregon did a tremendous job dealing with what was thrown at them against Iowa in terms of the elements and travel and all of that, and being able to overcome, especially the late touchdown by Mark Gronowski. But the travel in going across time zones is just it's just something else that I was going to have to prove that they're mentally tough. We've talked about how this team has been resilient and mentally tough over the course of the season, bouncing back from the Iowa State loss. You go on the road and beat Rutgers, bouncing back from the Indiana loss to win 3 in a row. This feels kind of like the ultimate test to their perseverance and mental toughness, because this is a pretty, we're talking about a Iowa program that still hasn't won a ranked game since 2021, and like, this is against a ranked team again. So
True.
they're gonna
Yeah.
have to like they're gonna have to break through some barriers that they haven't been able to in pretty impressive fashion coming off of the loss to
Mhm.
Oregon.
That's a really good point. And that did not get brought up at all today. The 0-12 run against ranked opponents. That would be there would be a couple things that would be nice to get kind of washed off the talking point. Thing would be the California trips and the 0-12 rank thing. They've been so close, and this might be they might get a shot in the bowl game depending. I guess just depending how they finish, but this would definitely be Iowa's definitive, potentially last shot and maybe best shot at defeating a ranked opponent this season. At B Walker asked very early in the chat, actually before we started, do you think the Hawks will fly out Friday or Thursday to adjust to the time change? Found out today they're flying out usual time on Friday, maybe an hour earlier than normal. So really not much earlier. It is a 12:30 local time kickoff on Saturday. So, basically like an 11 o'clock. It's basically like a 2:30 game here, but, out there, however you want to do the math, like it's basically like it is a 2:30 game here. So it really should be not that different, I don't think. And Ferentz kind of made that point today in his news conference. Like, he's not as worried about it, I guess, because there's not that Friday night game element as well to this. This feels like a normal prep for the Hawkeyes, I guess. So, but we'll get into the USC matchup a little bit more tomorrow. But since you weren't there today, Tyler, why don't you ask me a question about anything you want about what I learned or whatever, or what you're thinking about?
Was there any more clarity in terms of the run stopping? Because USC's offense is good, and it's not like it's going to be a walk in the park in terms of being able to stop the run and the pass, for that matter.
Well, I addressed a lot of that in DVR Monday. There was a lot of not setting the edge by defensive ends. There was a litany of issues. Guys having trouble getting off blocks was a major issue, and that's one reason I asked about linebacker today. I made the comment to somebody in the press box at halftime of the Oregon game. I was like, it would be bold, it would be risky, but I might put Cam Buffington in there in the second half because they were having trouble physically getting away from Oregon at that second level. And obviously they stuck with Montgomery and Ferentz. I asked today, and Ferentz is sticking with Montgomery and Harrell the rest of the way at middle linebacker. So Buffington's time will probably have to come next year, also on special teams, of course. But, I just felt like that was kind of a glaring issue that the linebackers just had trouble. And that's partly because the defensive line didn't do its job that it's supposed to do, which is, lock up those offensive linemen. A lot of those, linemen got to get to the second level and clean out Montgomery or get in their way, or Carson Shire, muck it up for them. And on the touchdown run, Shire, kind of got blocked just enough where he couldn't quite get to the edge, and Hill got into the end zone. There were missed tackles on that one. So they were all those things. Leverage. Zach Letmer was talking about leverage today, how, the back has to be on our inside shoulder, not our outside shoulder, as you're approaching the ball. Football people out there would understand that. So, it's all the boring fundamental stuff that you can't put in headlines necessarily. But Letmer did say, Tyler, that if we don't stop the run, we have no chance on Saturday. So stopping the run against the USC, which has a really good passing offense and the number 2 total offense in the country, behind Tennessee, Dargan's Tennessee Volunteers. They're number 2 in the country in total offense, and they're really good at running the ball too. So that's the key to the game Saturday yet again.
I think there's an argument to be made that this USC matchup is more difficult than it was the Oregon one, because Oregon had a few key players out, and you get them at Kinnick and you have the crowd behind you. But the USC game is like, now the narrative, maybe nationally has shifted pretty quickly. It went from the Oregon game where, Iowa, watch out, this is a dangerous underdog, to now Iowa, it looks like a terrible matchup for them against USC. I actually personally believe that we might be downplaying how bad of a matchup it is for Iowa, because not just because of how good USC is, but because of the struggles on the West Coast, because they haven't broken through and beaten a ranked team since 2021. Like, that's a lot of things that Iowa's going to have to overcome. Like, they probably barring like a total meltdown from USC, like they're probably gonna have to play their best game of the season. They're gonna have to play a Indiana, Oregon level game minus 2 to 3 of those critical mistakes that they made. So I think I mean, there's a lot of things going against Iowa. It's going to take a pretty tremendous effort and execution on their end to come away with a win.
Yeah, no question about it. It's a daunting challenge. Definitely the toughest challenge left in the regular season to this point. Yeah, like you said, the Trojans are going to be motivated too. They're now seeing a potential playoff spot on their radar. That said, they do have a trip to Oregon coming up after the Iowa game. Could it be a tiny bit of a look ahead spot for USC? Could it be?
I think that's fair. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, just something to think about. Like, I don't think they're going to overlook Iowa by any means, but everyone's already talking about Oregon USC. I've seen it out there in social media. Like, people are just like, oh, that USC Oregon game is going to be so huge in 2 weeks, basically for a playoff spot maybe. And so that's going to be, I don't know, something to watch. I mean, if you're looking for a little bit of hope as Iowa fans, you hope USC just doesn't play its best game. You know, if you watch the USC-Nebraska game, now that granted that was in Lincoln, you know, USC struggled to throw the ball in that game. So it's not like this offense is just unstoppable, but it did look really good against Northwestern on Friday night.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy. This is a really tough 2-game stretch for Iowa coming out of a bye week, but to get, I mean, the schedule, they've managed it pretty well this season in terms of being able to bounce back. And I know you talked about their resilience, the way, under Kirk Ferentz, they've really been able to come together. But this is going to be a major test to their ability to do that, given how last week ended up and how, the caliber of opponent they're playing on Saturday.
All right. Any final thought before we go? Any final thoughts on hoops?
Xavier on Friday is going to be – Xavier just lost to Santa Clara at home on Monday. So now this has quickly turned into a game that, like, Iowa – this is on paper when they definitely need a win. And but I think they should win, but it's also one where we haven't seen enough of this Iowa team to, like, feel confident, like, okay, it's a game they should win, so they're going to win it. Like, I think there's still enough unknown to where, like, we don't really know exactly how this is going to go, even though it looks like it's one that Iowa should win.
Thanks for gutting it out, Tyler. You're the man.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be in California on Friday. I'll be covering the game out at USC. Tyler will be toughing it out back home with Iowa versus Xavier. So, but we'll have our show to preview Iowa USC on Hawk Central Radio tomorrow, Wednesday. So catch us then. Chad Leistikow, Tyler Tachman. Talk to you soon.